You had given your life to Jesus. You were growing up in a loving family, but something threw you off track right at 10. What happened?
My parents divorced, and I never saw them fight. I heard my older brother and my dad go after it a few times. My brother, unfortunately, died 7 years ago. He was into heroin, LSD. Funny, his name was Larry Stephen Daggs, LSD.
Oh,
But
wow.
heroin was his choice of drug, and of course, marijuana. So I helped him in the process of dying, his liver, just so that I got my love of music from my brother. But when my dad walked out and moved out of the house because of infidelity, my mom was not a Christian when they were married. So her life dramatically changed when she became a Christian and accepted Christ. But it devastated me because I was the only girl and I was the youngest. So I was the baby girl, but I never felt like I was to my dad. I don't remember sitting on his lap. I don't remember being hugged. I don't remember any of that. I remember he'd come home from work and I'd get on his leg, and he'd walk me around or something, but I never saw them fight. So it was a real shocker. And I felt inside as that I have missed my chance to know my dad because he's gone now. And that wasn't the case. They came back and became great friends, and he started paying attention when I went on the road. And in fact, my dad gave his life to the Lord at one of my concerts.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
it gave him more purpose. He had two strokes and heart issues, and ended up at a VA home.
But I know, like, when that happened at 10, though, the enemy was telling you a lie about yourself, like that you weren't worthy of love.
It's like, why was I not enough for him not to leave?
Yeah.
Why was I not enough for him not to really get to know me or love me or hug me? Mm-hmm. And I remember, this is a little intimate, but I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever shared this anywhere. I might have shared it in the book. But I remember being 2 or 3 and him picking me up, and I was going to give him a kiss. And as little kids do, sometimes their tongue comes out. They don't know how to kiss really. And I remember this, like I had done something wrong. And that just kind of set in me like, I just want to love my dad. Yeah, rejection. Yeah, that early. So
that kind of set you on a path. I mean, you moved to Nashville, you were pursuing music, which you've always loved. You got it from your brother.
Yes.
And then a really interesting thing happened to you because you almost got robbed and you could have been killed. And there was a connection with your mom. So tell me that story.
This is amazing. I was not following the Lord. I was a master bartender at TGI Fridays. And after shift, many of us would go over. There's a funeral home next to Fridays, downtown Nashville. And we sat on the ledge, the planter edge, and we were smoking weed. And 2 guys walked up, one taller than the other, and were asking us which restaurants were still open. And we're trying to be helpful and say, oh yeah, Tony Roma's, exit in, you grab last call or maybe get a burrito over there or whatever. They said, we're not here for food, we're robbers. We're here to rob you. And we're just like, and so they started to say, we're gonna take a walk. And the 4 of us got up, and they had one gun. They had 2 guns, one apiece, and one was under my gal friend's neck like this, and one was in my side. And I remember I had some nice jewelry, and I was flipping the stones around, and I had things in my purse that they got, and I had just bought a Toyota Celica. My first new car that someone had ordered had everything, and I'm like, don't take my car. So I kind of hid the keys. And crazy Lisa went running after him. And I remember they had a discolored door, and I remember there was kind of a station wagon thing. And I thought for a minute, what am I doing? And when I called my mom, I was shaking so bad. She said, what time was that? And I said, it was about 1 in the morning. And she said, 2-hour difference, at 11 o'clock p.m. I was asleep, and God woke me up with a start. And I got out of bed, didn't want to wake my husband, and I went in the other room and hit my knees and started interceding for you. And I believe that's when another car had a little too much to drink, and they ran into another parked car and startled these two, and they fled.
Wow. But they had actually killed someone. The police told you.
Just around the corner was Tony Roma's, and two couples were there, and they robbed them, and they shot one of them, and they died.
Yeah.
So when we went down to pick them out of a photo lineup, they took us all in separately. We all picked the same 6-foot-something guy and the 5'9". We picked the same guys, and they said, yep, those are the two.
Wow. You know, the prayers of a mom. And that's a really big part of your story because, you know, after your parents divorced, you started walking away from your faith. You started getting into addiction, into a $1,000 a day cocaine habit, drinking. And you found yourself at one point facing serious jail time. What happened with that?
I had up to $1,000 a day rock cocaine habit. I drank and or used every day. I'd try to stop drinking, and then I would just smoke. I learned how to cook it up, or I'd switch. And the reason I started cooking it up is because I was having severe nosebleeds. Because when you snort cocaine, it goes right to the membrane of your brain, and it causes bleed. So it was the fourth time I was arrested, and I was sitting in jail and feeling a little haughty, like I'm having an all-girl band and we're going on a DOD tour and we're going overseas, and I'm in here with these girls that are rocking and picking their scabs from meth, and they all bailed out before I did, and I was alone in that cell. And I just said, we've made promises to the Lord before. All of us have, right? If you just do this, I'll do that. But this time I meant it. I knew what I had done. I was facing 3 to 5. And I said, if you get me out of this mess, Lord. First I said, how did I get here? How did I end up here? And he whispered, and he said, compromise. Because of your compromise, these are your consequences. And I said, if you get me out of this, I will never, ever quit telling people what you've done for me. Please. I mean it. And I made a promise, and I'm glad today, Cheryl, that I can say that is one promise I have kept. I'm 35 years clean and sober.
Oh, amazing.
And have been so blessed to be able to lead thousands and thousands of people into recovery and into the arms of Jesus to learn what forgiveness is about, and serving him and the joy and the peace and patience and kindness and goodness and mercy and all those things we get when we lay down the trash and we actually get the treasure. We're holding on, purple knuckled. You're not going to get this, but he has a feast. And peace is such a great indicator of his presence in your life.
And I love the story of your mom praying, because your husband was telling me before this interview that there's actually a piece of carpet that was worn right down from her knees praying for you. And I think it's so encouraging for parents out there that don't give up. You just never know it. How many years were you away from the Lord?
I'm not sure. I've stretched the truth about my age so long that I can't quite calculate.
Okay, well, let's move on.
See. I used and drank. I started doing cocaine. I don't know if I started with my dad, but I ended up buying it from him before he came to the Lord, and he got it from the mafia.
Wow.
And he's in the book, The Last Mafioso. So I would get it through FedEx, sent to Nashville, and go there and just get a huge rock and started selling it. I used and drank for well over 12 years, 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing what you've been able to do to be clean and sober this long and really keep that promise you made in prison. But the hard times weren't over, and you actually had a season in your life where you found out your husband wasn't who you thought he was.
And I met him in church, ladies. I met him in church, and there were some signs, but I don't know. I made the wrong choice, but I didn't know that until after we were married. Really, after our honeymoon night is when I knew. We stayed together for 12 and a half years, and my daughter was 8, and I discovered that he was talking to about 30 different women online. and it's not the man I knew. It was vulgar, and I found out some things from another pastor that someone came to him, didn't share what had happened, but there was no intimacy, and it was a very lonely life of ministry, because he would usually beat me down verbally before I'd set foot on stage. And that's just like Satan, to try to rob you of everything. But instead, I'd come out like, hurrah! Like, God, not literally, but how I need you, show up. I'm focusing on you, I'm not going to focus on what was just in my face with spit flying on me, It was horrendous, but God.
Yeah, because now you're a single mom with an 8-year-old.
At that time,
and
yes.
you lost everything. You lost your home.
I lost my home.
Like, absolutely everything. You had a book deal that went away.
I called Gloria Gaither as soon as I found out all these things, and I'm telling you, Cheryl, everything that could ooze tears, snot, or saliva
Just pain.
was just dripping. Not a pretty picture. I was broken. I said, she encouraged me to write a book. I said, I don't have a book anymore. And I was raised in assembly, so I'm like, I don't even know if I have a ministry, because now I'm going to be divorced. And I tried to reach out and tell him all the wonderful things that I remember through other pastors. It was a pastor of pastors, a counselor. And so I wrote him a letter and sent it to him, and I said, did you get the letter? And his response was, yeah, we can hold hands around the campfire some other time. I said, okay. So I walked it out, and I raised my daughter on my own, and still in full-time ministry. So I had her every other weekend, or 5 on, 2 off, 5 on, however they did it. They kind of mixed it up. But I would only book the 2 weekends that I didn't have her, because it's most important to let her see how I get up every morning. I got up every morning. But I'm telling you, in those sorrows, in those deepest times of wreckage of your life, and you're still clean, I got closer to the Lord, to where the phone rang and I didn't run for it. Who's calling? Who's texting? It didn't matter to me. It was the Word of God laying in my bed after I got her ready for school, and my mom stroked out on my kitchen floor at that time.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really worship music and time with the Lord that got me through, because he was the only one I could count on. And the presence in the music and the words just were soothing to my soul. And yeah, there's a whole lot more details if they want to read all the nitty gritty down and dirty. It's there.
Your book is No Turning Back, Regardless, Lisa Daggs. And, that word regardless, we can't end the interview without talking about that, because that's a word that God gave you in the midst of all of this heartbreak and devastation. Explain that to me. What does regardless mean to you?
I had a big CD coming out called Forgiveness. I was writing that after I'd found out. I was recording it after I had found out the truth of what was going on in my home. And Forgiveness is a Powerful Thing is the name of the title cut. And when we had the big release party at a Celebrate Recovery, that night I felt like the crowd, like it was waves. I've never felt it before or since, like waves that would come up to the front and like just splash on me. It was a one-time like feeling, splash, and the place, they usually had 60 people. There were over 600 standing there celebrating with me. And when I came home that night, people had flown in from other states to celebrate with me. And I found my house nearly empty. And I had a dear friend take Faith home. She had fallen asleep, and put her to bed. And when I woke her up in the morning, after I had become aware of the truth, I said, honey, Daddy came here last night and took a lot of things, and I just want to warn you. And she went running down the hall and hit the carpet with her knees and started sobbing. All of our living room furniture was gone. Things were gone. My drawers were emptied out, and he took the dresser, but all my intimates, everything, just, I was like, took the pictures off the wall of he and Faith. My daughter's name is Faith. And I said, Lord, no matter how hard it gets, I'm not turning back. I will not retreat. I will not give up. Whatever it takes, there's no turning back, regardless. I'm following through with my promise because I'm not going to go back to the mess. It's like a dog returning to his vomit, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand how or why, but there was a lot of verbal abuse, and that'll tear you down and make you feel like you're not enough. But there's one who thinks we're enough and knows we're enough, that went on the cross and died for us, because to him we are his treasure. And we are enough. Maybe the person that you're with is not enough, is not the truth, right?
Yeah, and I think, you've been through so much, but I did meet your husband, your new husband, who took 5.5 years to get you to notice him. Talk to me about restoration, because you've been through so much heartbreak, so much brokenness. How do you see God restoring even the painful, ugly things that you went through?
Well, Ronnie Horton, great nephew of Johnny Horton, from some of you who remember the name. He was raised in a Christian home where they exemplified what Christianity was in truth, in love, in service, in worship, in adoration, and in holiness, and what that meant. So it was displayed before him. And he had never had a cigarette or a sip of champagne, nothing. I'm like, do those people exist? And I was dating somebody else whom I had fallen in love with, but he was another narcissist. I picked another, my picker was broken. And Ronnie and I just continued to become the best of friends. So we had no secrets. We told each other everything. And there came a time when I felt he was going to ask me to marry him. And I was in a quandary, kind of like, trust was broken. Yeah. And that takes a long time to heal. But the man that I was dating, he said, watch a man's character, and his character was flawed. And the more time I spent with Ronnie and becoming best friends, I asked myself, do I want to live forever without this man? And the answer was, no, I don't. And we don't fight. We don't raise our voices. We've been married almost 8 years. And he sings harmony like no one's ever sang harmony with me before. And his voice, individual, as a soloist. He was at a dinner the night before I sang at his brother's church. And my daughter was with a good friend, who my daughter led the little girl to Jesus on the steps of the church, a little old church in Paradise, which burnt down, as many of you might have heard. A lot of propane tanks exploded. Beautiful place, but I don't remember seeing him at dinner because I wasn't a cheater. I was seeing this other person. And then he started singing The Lighthouse, and I was finishing up my merch table, and I'd heard the song 1,000 times. Ronnie Henson, the Henson family wrote it, and my head flipped around. I said, where is that voice coming from? It was a voice like I had not heard, and I turned around, and there he's singing, and I didn't know he was at dinner the night before, and that's how it started. The other relationship was always up and down and conditional on his own convenience. Yeah. And Ronnie, and promises made to do something, and Ronnie would drive an hour and a half to help me come get my gear and load everything up to go do a ministry concert. He was faithful. He was where he said he was, and he did what he say he'd do, and he was early.
And how many years have you been married now?
Almost 8.
Okay, Lisa, your story, I think, is such a clear example that your today is not your forever. And I think we need to remember that sometimes, because when we're in the middle of something that is so heartbreaking, it feels like nothing will ever be good ever again. But your story is a living proof that it will. And I just want to encourage you watching this interview, if that's you and you feel like, I'm never getting out of this, it's never going to get good, God can't make something beautiful out of what was terrible, I just want you to know that's a lie. And there are other seasons ahead. And if you just need somebody to give you some of that hope and even just pray with you for that next season, we would love to do that. Please give our prayer lines a call. The number's on the bottom of your screen, 1-866-273-4444. We would love to be part of that next season of your life. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
One thing, there is life after divorce, especially when Christ is in the center of it. And you'll be amazed of what he will do. You've just got to let go.